Howdy. This is going to be YouTube video number 7. Once again, coming from beautiful Dobbins-Bennett High School here in Kingsport. I'm doing this video on Wednesday, September 12th. If you look behind me, you can see some of the Dobbins-Bennett's metaphors. Got a soccer field, football field, got a rose up top, tree down here. Kind of fun to put them all on the wall and see what everybody's doing. For this video, I kind of want to go over figurative language a little bit. There's a help sheet here in Schoology. It's under descriptive essay hints here. Just a little PDF document. I'll go ahead and open that eventually. There we go. And all this is just a short handout on descriptive, how to be good with your description within an essay assignment. And part of the requirements for this first essay, the self-regulated learner essay, is good description. So, one, there's a little blurb there on colors. Right, if you go to the store and just say, to Lowe's and say, hey, I need me some red paint, they're going to look at you like you're crazy, right? They're going to point you to the wall and you're going to see 100 different shades of red, and they're going to expect you to pick it out and then, make a more reasonable request from them. Right, there's going to be fire engine red, cherry red, this red, that red. Same thing like here with the examples here with blue. You can't just ask for blue paint anymore. It has to be midnight essence or something. But also with this essay, I'm looking for at least 5 forms of figurative language. Trying to get you to be descriptive. If you're going to tell me how messy your desk is as you try to control your learning environment, don't just say my desk is really messy. It's like, well, show me how messy is it. Give me an example. Use some figurative language, kind of exaggerate a little, and kind of make the essay kind of fun to read. We're going to go through just a few different types. Hopefully you've had these before or you've heard of these. If you haven't, well, you learned something new. But these are the kind of things I want you to include in your essay. One type of figurative language is a simile, comparing two unlike things with using like or as. If you call your little brother a turd, that's a kind of type of figurative language that's not very nice. You're comparing two unlike things on a very unpleasant way, actually, if you get down to the basic of the metaphor, the simile there. But if somebody says you look like 5 miles of bad road, they're probably saying you're not looking too good today, right? Good religious poetry relies on simile. The ungodly are not so, but are like the shape with the wind driveth away, from Psalm 1. Comparing non-believers to wheat byproducts that are going to be thrown into the fire, right? Kind of a frightening simile in some ways there. But good insults, good poetry. Our love is like a red, red rose newly sprung in June. Our love is like the melody sweetly played in tune. Good poetry relies on good similes. Same thing with good insults, right? Somebody says you're as dumb as a coal bucket. They're insulting you, right? Likewise with the metaphor, same kind of thing. You're comparing two unlike things without using like or as. The same basic concept. If somebody says you're not the sharpest tool in the shed, they're insulting you. They're saying you're kind of a little slow on the uptake, right? And using a metaphor to do it. Again, generally, God's referred to in terms of simile or metaphor. We don't tend to say God's 25 miles wide, 10 miles high, and looks like Charlton Heston or something. We generally signify God through relationships. The Lord is my shepherd. Christ the cornerstone, things like that. And some very nice metaphors as well. If you call someone a male chauvinist pig, you're using a metaphor there, right? Comparing a human being to a pig. But you'll see these metaphors and similes all day long. Sometimes when you're sitting there having to write an essay, it's hard to just spontaneously burst forth with great similes and metaphors, but hopefully they'll start coming to you. Generally, you notice when they're not there. Like I said, you say, my desk is just really messy. It's like, it's as messy as a what? And kind of use a good simile or metaphor to kind of bring it alive for us. Personification, giving a human trait to a non-human object. Students like to say this computer hates me, right? Computers are just inanimate objects. They don't hate you, they just do what you tell them to. which can be very frustrating. But they're using personification when you say this computer hates me or something like that, or this cursor is mocking me. And we do this all the time. If you crash your car, you might tell a police officer that tree just jumped right out in front of me, officer. I couldn't believe it. And of course, the officer doesn't believe it either. The officer knows you're using personification. And that tree didn't really jump in front of you. But again, we do this all the time, right? Hyperbole, deliberate and obvious exaggeration. Insults rely on hyperbole quite often. Children do this all the time, so sometimes to parents. This room looks like a pigsty, kind of combining hyperbole and assembly together in one statement to make a point. But my kids have done this in the grocery store. We're going through it, and they're just like, "Oh, we've been shopping for 5 days," and of course, obviously, hopefully we haven't been shopping for 5 days. They're using hyperbole for effect. Oh, my feet are falling off. I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna die. Right? Especially young children like to use hyperbole to aggravate their parents. Of course, sometimes parents do it to their children too, right? Synesthesia, kind of a fancy term, just deliberately confusing the senses. Somebody, cuts a fart. People start saying, "Oh, that fog's coming at me! Watch, run away." They're using synesthesia. Methane doesn't really have a color. You can't see a fart coming at you. They're deliberately confusing the senses a bit for a dramatic effect. And also, you kind of notice these terms aren't mutually exclusive. They kind of work with each other sometimes. Synesthesia can be kind of hyperbolic at the same time. But like Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound's not sweet, it's not a taste, but we know what the writer's saying with a line like that. And of course, something like that you got a loud tie on, just saying that's a really bright, garish kind of piece of apparel you have going there. Last one, again, we use these all the time, verbal irony. For our purposes, it's kind of when the words say one thing but mean another. It's basically sarcasm. Right, probably some of these videos you're like, man, I wish this guy could just talk a little longer. I wish he talked just a little slower. Hopefully, the words are saying one thing, but you're kind of meaning another, being a little sarcastic. Parents do it to their kids all the time. You're like, can you move a little slower so I can be even a little later? That would be wonderful, honey. And the kids are, start going even slower, right, just to prove a point. And of course, kids do it to their parents as well. Thanks for ruining my life, Mom. But when you kind of start using these in your essay, it starts making the language come alive a little bit, makes it a little more fun to read. And that's kind of what I'm pushing you to do with this first essay. So when you say it's hard to control your learning environment, show us that. Tell us how loud it is and what your siblings are doing, or how aggravating your cell phone is, by using simile or personification or something to kind of make that language come alive. This handout is just sitting there in Schoology. And hopefully that's kind of how a lot of the internet course kind of works. You listen to me talk about it a little bit, but you always can go back and refer back to it. Because obviously you're not going to hang on every single word I'm saying, because you may have trouble controlling your learning environment, right? You might have a little brother trying to grab your earbuds as you're trying to listen to this or something. Also, just one kind of note on general organization. As we finish 1 week, I'm going to start putting it in this file down here, this past class dates and materials. Otherwise, we're going to have 1,000 YouTube videos flying all over the place. I'm just going to kind of try and keep them in the week we used them. So you can always go back, and if you want to revisit a video or something, it'll be there. So the material for week 2 will just keep building with probably videos 5, 6, and 7. 5 was simply how to format and download into Word. Number 6 was a review of the first essay, and this is number 7. It's going to be about the figurative language. If you want it organized in a different way, let me know if it's getting confusing. But other than that, I'm going to get off here, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.